What up, big dogs? I'm your host, Coach Craig, and this is Athletes Unleashed. On today's episode, my guest is a college student at Santa Clara University and a former soccer player. We discuss spending her senior high school season injured, how she kept a positive attitude and continued to contribute to the team, moving on from soccer with a potential comeback, and a deep dive on finding yourself and evolving as an individual. Please enjoy my conversation with Andrea Tovar. Andrea, thank you so much for doing this with us today. I'm very excited to see you. I haven't seen you in a really long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You've been away at college, you've been traveling abroad, and so it's kind of a little reunion and an opportunity for us to chat. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
Me too. I'm very happy to have you. So I know you from high school soccer and also being a health and wellness coach. We've worked through some I've helped with some personal stuff, and I've always felt like we had a really great connection.
For sure.
And I wanted to talk to you because a lot of the people that I talk with, a lot of the young elite athletes who are coming up, their careers are just starting. They're on the precipice of kind of becoming something more with the potential of being great or playing in college. And you are a very promising young soccer player, and your career, I think, the way you envisioned it didn't quite go the way you expected. And now you don't really play anymore. I just, before we were talking, and I asked you, do you play? And you said no. So I want to get into how your career kind of got to where it was and how it kind of came to an end. And then, if there's a bright spot in the future of maybe playing a little bit again. So I got to know you best during your senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And the reason we got to know each other so well is because we spent a lot of time on the bench together, me coaching and you being a part of the team but not being able to play because you were injured. So what happened? Take us through the injury and like how the season kind of played out for you.
Yeah. Okay, so the injury kind of started during winter training. So this was during preseason before actual season had even begun. And I had been like overworking myself. I didn't take coach's advice like not to weightlift and do training at the same time. So I was simultaneously doing both, and I was just working myself really hard. And I remember this one time at training where I was like sprinting to the ball, but there was just like shooting pain up my shin, and it had been like reoccurring, and it had bothered me. And of course I went to like Josh, I went to the athletic trainer, and he said it was just shin splints, whatever. And so it got to the point where it was just like unbearable. It was like any pressure, even if I was walking, I was limping, and it was horrible. And so I ended up going to the doctor, and they said that I had a hairline fracture in my shin, and that like there's literally just no cure for that besides like they're not gonna go and do surgery or put me in a brace or anything. So I just couldn't play. I couldn't weight train or do anything. I was just like off, completely done.
The only option is rest.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember it was hard for me because I told Brett, our coach at the time, and Brett has been my coach since freshman year, and I love Brett. I have a really good connection with him. I still keep in touch with him. So I know he like wanted more from me, and he knew I could like push myself, but I think sometimes players are like, oh, I can't do this because of this injury, but sometimes the coaches don't understand, and like it was making me question whether I was really that injured to be able to not play at all. But it was my senior year. I was like, no, last time I played on an injury, I made it worse. And I was just like, okay, this is it. Like, it's done. Senior year, like, it's totally fine. I wasn't really too stressed out about, like, oh, but, like, college is coming up, and I don't know if I want to play in college. It was getting to the point where I had realized, like, this injury is going to take me out. And that was it. But I think the reason I stayed really involved with the team is because of the way that Heart Soccer kind of like shaped my high school experience, because all my life playing soccer, like having the support of a team and girls who you really bond with is something that I think is honestly essential to not only just like, oh, you're staying in shape, but it's like it builds character. And I think that Heart Soccer especially, like, it's super competitive, but at the end of the day, like, I got your back, you got mine. And I think that I just wanted to be that support. Like, I know we get grilled by coaches, we get grilled by our parents, but like I felt like I just wanted to be there as like a big sister. Like, don't get so hard on yourself. Like, you're fine. You're doing great. Like, I just wanted to be there, like, be a little hype woman. And so that's why I decided to, like, continue to show up and show out for the team.
That's great. I think there are a lot of people who, when injuries occur, it's really devastating to them, and it's difficult for them to be around because they don't get to do what they love to do. And
it's hard to watch from the sidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think finding ways to continue to contribute, it just shows how good of a teammate you are, and it demonstrates your character. And you made a good point there where your relationships and what you learn in the game throughout your career, throughout the time you play, from being a kid all the way up, you're learning life lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's more than just the game. And that's what I try to remind people is, as a coach, you're obviously developing players, you're developing skill sets, whatever you're coaching, you want to develop, but you're really developing humans, because the likelihood that any of them are going to be professional athletes is very low.
Yeah.
But they're all going to be professional adults and professional humans. You need to understand that the things that you are learning and the relationships that you're cultivating and the environment that you're putting yourself in and how you carry yourself in that environment will carry forward in your life. And you'll be presented with other situations in the future that you'll look back and be like, oh, I learned from the situation I was in. So it's great for me to hear. I mean, I knew why you were there. Like, you're a leader on the team even without playing, and you help guide players and you're supportive for them. And we spent every game on the bench together, and it was great. I had a wonderful time.
I had such a good time, honestly.
I'm a lot during games, but yeah, we had an awesome time, and it was a great season. I mean, we didn't achieve everything we wanted to, but the team went really far, and it was a very fun time for the team to be together. And we kind of had our own little injured squad on the bench that we all got to spend time together, and it was fun. I think that's the biggest thing, is when a lot of people can't play, the fun of the game goes away. But it's nice to hear that the fun goes beyond just playing, and the enjoyment goes beyond just playing. It's the cultivating of relationships. It's building a sisterhood or a brotherhood, and being with your team even when you can't be with your team. I think that's really important, and it's something that carries forward in your life.
I agree.
That's great. I'm very happy to hear that, and I know you made an impact with a lot of players that year. So I was very grateful that you were there.
Yeah, they're like my little sisters.
Yeah, and it's good. We didn't have a lot of seniors on that team, so it was nice to have a really solid group of like a small group, but a solid group of older players, and the ones who were able to contribute were great. And I think we had 6 seniors, and they were all the best. And it was really sad to see them all leave. And I remember we had a very young team at that point. And when the season was over, the seniors were obviously like sad they were leaving, but you could see how devastated the rest of the team was, because all of their friends and role models were moving on, and it was like, okay, now it's your time to carry the program. And as somebody who's still in it, I can see the legacy that you and the rest of those girls left, and how the girls who are seniors now and who are leaders now carry over the things that you guys did, and the values that you instilled. So I can definitely say that you left your mark on the program.
Wow. No, that's refreshing to hear, though, because I remember I was talking to someone, even in college, we were talking about sports, and like how everyone at heart, especially, I feel like, is super connected, like throughout the grades. And I think that since like, I think that we have a good team, and like we were kind of brought up kind of on the rule or kind of discipline, I guess, that like if there's gonna be drama, like go, like you're done. Like there's no tolerance for it at all.
Right.
And so I think that like knowing that and establishing that from the beginning, and then proceeding on to high school, and like no one was ever like tearing each other down. It was like some healthy competition to make you better, to make me better. But it was never like, oh, like she's younger than me, she's below me, or she's older than me, she's so much better than me. Like it was never like that. And that's why I really liked playing with heart. And it just never felt like I felt out of place. Like I always felt welcome, whether it was me sitting on the bench or literally me playing. Regardless, I was like, this is my team, this is my home. I know, like I continue to go to my little sister's games, and I'll say hi to Laura, I'll say hi to Brett. Like, it's something that has impacted me, and I'm glad it happened, but like soccer is a chapter that I've kind of closed in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And how do you feel about the fact that you've closed that chapter? Well, and I think you closed it, but it also kind of closed for you. Like it was closed on your behalf. So I don't know how necessarily that made you feel either.
Well, I guess I can kind of go back to where like it first started for me. Sophomore year, when I was at tryouts, during the tryout, I had slid and I hurt my knee, and it like could not get up, could not move, could not bend it. And I was so scared that I tore my ACL. I was so scared. I didn't end up tearing my ACL. I tweaked my meniscus, but it still took me out for a while. And then I remember the results for tryout came out like a week later, and then I saw that I was on JV again. And I was on JV freshman year, but I, of course, like expected more, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be on varsity.
Sure.
But after the injury and then seeing that I was on JV again, Brett called me and he had told me about everything. And at that point, I was like, okay, like, thank you. I understand why the decision was made. Like, super mature about it. I was like, this only makes me want to work harder. Like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do whatever. But then it was COVID. So after that happened, I was like, okay, like, this is a time I'm going to have alone. And I had, like, a bunch of inertia, like, a bunch of it. I was like, I'm going to spend this time. It's going to be 2 weeks that everyone thought we were going to be out of school. And then it turned into a month and then 2 months. And it was just like, okay, I have all this time alone. And I was kind of taking it for granted in the time that I was like, yeah, I could be training, but I don't really feel like training. Like, I just,
it's hard to find the motivation there.
Exactly. And I was like, what if there is no more soccer after this? Like, what if we can't go back to playing? So then I had kind of like the injury on top of not making varsity, on top of COVID was just like, it was all just kind of like bringing me back. And I was like, not necessarily like what is the point, but it was just really hard to find the motivation to be better, do better. And I think that playing soccer, playing club competitively, like, I've always felt like I have put in the work to play the way that I played and earn my spot on the field. And I think that not having that kind of competition or like kind of like fire under my ass, I didn't have the motivation to be better. And I think that's something that was really important for me to learn, being on varsity like my senior year finally, and then like that career kind of just coming to an end because of another injury, was kind of like, I can't be mad about something I didn't work hard for.
Right.
And I was seeing all the younger girls, Ari, amazing, Issa, amazing, Natalie, all of them, all the younger girls putting in the work. They've been doing it all and going to extra private trainings and whatever. And I was like, wow, like, really proud of them. Like, discipline is hard, especially during that kind of developing time. And I was like, I can't be mad that, like, I'm not going to be able to play when I haven't put in the work for it. And so I was like, what am I going to be mad about? Like, it's all in my hands, and if I wanted to, like, I could have motivated myself again and gone to more private trainings, but I just didn't have it in me apparently. But I'm not mad that my career ended the way that it did. But yeah, I think that was something after I learned that I need to work for what I want, everything just made sense. I was like, okay, everything is in my hands, and how my career is going to unfold is going to be up to me.
It's heavy. It's good, though. Like, I mean, it's interesting because I would imagine the injury happens, COVID happens, you can't play, you're losing motivation, your mental state has got, I mean, I know everyone struggled during COVID, especially the younger kids, not going to school, losing out on everything that is their life. But that combined with your knee and then not being able to continue forward, your mental state, your emotional state has got to be rough at that point.
Yeah.
But then to be able to turn it and be like, no, I learned from the situation when I came back and I didn't get what I wanted or what I thought I wanted. you were able to take, I think this is another big thing, when you can take a really negative situation and something that I think a lot of people would let break them, and you can turn it into a positive in the sense of like, I didn't get what I wanted because I didn't work for it, but now I know moving forward that if I want something, I better work. And I can't be disappointed in anyone but myself if I'm not willing to put forth the effort.
Yeah.
I think that's a lesson that a lot of people need to learn. And I think it's difficult sometimes when you are able to do the things that you want to do all the time to feel that. Because when you don't get what you want and you have been working, sometimes you look at it as like, oh, you know, people are against me, or, you know, I just don't have the relationship with this person that the other people do. You know, you think politics play a role or whatever it might be. You're looking for every excuse to not look at yourself. And of course, I'm sure there are situations that are like that. But I think for the vast majority of people, you really can't be mad at the hard work you didn't do. That's a perfect statement. Yeah. Don't be mad at other people for working harder than you. You got to look at what you wanted and what you were willing to put in and what you get out of it. And I'm glad that, you know, I think for a lot of people, learning that when you did might devastate them, but you've really turned it, and I would imagine have taken it forward. So now you're in college and you're doing your own thing. Do you find yourself coming back to those lessons from soccer and 100%. Utilizing them?
Yeah, I think that one especially, because I remember going into college, like grades being like another thing. So easy during high school, whatever. I didn't really have to. I was kind of that kid that didn't really have to try to get good grades. Not to brag.
You and me both.
But then, like, going into college, like, people say it's so much harder, but that on top of the fact that I was on quarter system, so it's a 10-week system, and there's no room to slack off to get a bad grade in something, because there's only so little that affects your final grade. So, like, I remember my first quarter, I got my first B that I've ever gotten, like, in my entire life. And it was just a strike to the ego. I was like, wow, like, ain't no way that just happened right now. But then I remember I went home for winter break, and I was like, okay, like, mindset shift, like, because in high school I procrastinated. But I procrastinated and I built that habit because at the end of the day, I always got the result.
Yeah, you didn't need to do the work because you got it done anyway.
Exactly. And so going into my second quarter, I was like, okay, that's not gonna slide anymore. That's not gonna work anymore. And I had to develop study habits and actually put in the work and go to office hours and all that. And I think I had a big ego in the sense that I was like, I don't need anyone's help. But I did. And I'm glad that I came to that conclusion, and I had a friend group and support system that was like, go, like, I'll go with you, like, you know. So I think that learning that I need to put in the work, and I have no one to blame but myself. Like, I can make up 1,000 excuses for why I didn't get an assignment done, but at the end of the day, it's because I was lazy. It's because I procrastinated. Like, I'm not gonna. I think that helped me grow a lot too, because I take more accountability in my actions, and not only like in school and soccer, but like in my relationships with other people as well. So I think that that's like a really good example of how like soccer and the kind of things that we learn from that like translate into everything else.
Yeah, you're dropping all sorts of knowledge right now. So you just, it's good. Like no, it's great. You just like talking about how a lot of people, and I can relate to this too, when you're self-sufficient and you're able to get things done on your own time frames, like asking for help is difficult.
It is.
Asking for help is really hard, especially when you're used to doing everything on your own and you're really comfortable doing it on your own, and you don't like to rely on other people. And it's one of the things for me with team sports, where in a sports environment, it's not hard for me to ask for help.
Yeah.
Like, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Of course you need help. You can't do it all yourself. You need to combine and work with your team to achieve a goal. But school was always a different story, where it's like, I got this. Like, I don't need anybody else. So I think learning that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to admit that you need help and to lean on the people around you is something that you can kind of translate from sports into academics and into life. Like, everybody's struggling with something, whether it be school or mental health or family or whatever it might be. It doesn't make you any less than to say, I need help.
Yeah.
And I think it actually makes you pretty strong to be able to admit, like, I can't do this on my own, and I just need a little bit of support.
Yeah, and it's also not only support and help, but it's also a different perspective. And it's like having another perspective to compare to what you think is so hard for you to achieve. You ask someone who you think is smarter than you, who has already done it, it's like they show you the little shortcut. And it's like the same thing with soccer. Like, I remember I was like, why do I need privates? Why do I need all this? But it's like, you just gotta put in the work. And it's so much easier in soccer, I think, because, like, for example, like Malin, Micah, and like our kind of club team, we had like a defense group chat during COVID when like we felt like we weren't getting enough training and stuff. And we all were like, okay, like we don't feel the need to go to like these technical, really skill trainings. Like, let's do our own thing. Like, let's send long balls. Let's practice long balls for a while. Let's go for some jogs. Let's build our conditioning. It's like, it's those kinds of things where if you build like a small support system of people who are on the same wavelength trying to achieve the same thing, it's so much better because you're just like surrounded by people who are exactly like you and they have the same goals, and you can work together to achieve that.
That's good. That's interesting.
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about that group chat.
Dude, I just remembered right now.
Producer Malin jumping in there. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting, I really love the translation of learning lessons from your sports experiences and then seeing how they carry forward in your life, especially when you don't play anymore. Because you don't really think about it in any other context besides the one it's in.
Yeah.
Then you find yourself in a completely different environment and you're like, oh shit, I already know how to do this. Or this is exactly the way it was before. And I think it's fascinating. Like, for me, as I've gotten older, I keep coming back to things that I learned in those environments when we were just grinding and trying to get better. And I am now, as a coach, I am now trying to instill those values in other kids and help them see the same things. And I use my own personal examples all the time. And just to remind them, like, even something as simple as going to practice. I mean, there are days, when I was younger, I was a kid who did not want to train. Like, I would go to practice, and I liked it. There were aspects of practice that I liked, and I liked being with the team, and I loved to play. But I was also the guy being like, okay, 15 minutes left to practice. We're almost out of here.
Same, I'd be like, Malin time.
Yeah. And so, but now I go to practice voluntarily because it's fun for me. And I think back and I try to remind as many players as I can. Take advantage of what you have while you have it, because when you don't have it, whether it be your athleticism, whether it be your health, whether it be your opportunity to play, whether it be your freedom of time, once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. And you'll look back on those times and be like, wow, I really squandered a lot of, I maybe didn't take advantage as much as I should have of those experiences. And so I try to instill that in players that I talk to now. I'm like, hey man, take advantage of being able to go to practice with your friends, because there's gonna be a time in your life where you gotta go to work, or you got kids, or you have responsibilities, and you will think back and be like, God, what I would give to just go to practice and not have to worry about anything but soccer or whatever sport you play. It's nice to hear that someone as young as yourself, you just finished your freshman year of college, you're at Santa Clara. It's nice to hear someone as young as yourself really have come to terms with those things already, because you were already that role of player to help other people move along. But a lot of times I wish I had known those things about myself earlier, because I felt like I could have helped more people. I could have gone to my friends, I could have worked with other people and been like, hey, I've been through your experience. And I think you talking about older students showing you the way, it's a very cyclical thing. It's you see the same environment that you were providing to other people now being provided to you. And whether it be, just your energy or the environment, or putting whatever out into the world and getting it back, I really think that making yourself available to other people to be supportive and to be helpful, you tend to get that in return. And so it's nice to hear that all the things that you were providing when you didn't have to. I think that's the big thing, is you didn't have to. We talked to another guest about the same thing, where she wasn't playing and she was upset about it, but she wanted to support her teammates. And that's important. You know, it's important to be a good teammate. It's important to contribute to your community, whatever that is, and whatever that means to you. So I'm glad to hear that, you know, I mean, I never doubted you for a second, but it's nice to hear that those things are resonating with you already, because I think it's going to be a kind of a theme of your life where you're going to realize, like, I have the capacity to help a lot of people, and it's nice to help people. And I love to coach because of that reason. Like, I like helping you is an important thing for me, and it's a reason why we have the relationship that we do.
Yeah.
And those relationships are very important to me as a coach. And it's something that I'm hopefully going to cherish forever. And if you have the opportunity to do what I did for you, for other people, I think then it was all worth it in the long run, because it keeps moving forward, it keeps passing down, and that's what you have to do with your community.
Yeah, I think it's just really rewarding being able to give back, not only to someone who, like, for example, like you, like being able to go to you and talk to you about some personal things, but it's like, I don't really take into consideration, like, I know, like, in high school, like, the friendships that you have are like, oh, we're friends because I see you in class, or we have the same brunch, but
Friendships of convenience.
Yeah, but like in college, it's like finding those relationships and being able to give back to those relationships is so, like, rare. Like, finding people who can be vulnerable to you and you can be the same way back. It's
That's more than just college, kid. It's life, too.
No, yeah.
It goes on.
And trying to find those friendships, it's hard, because I think in college, too, in terms of, like, being friends with other people, it's like, are you friends with me because we're in the same class and you're trying to cheat on, like, an assignment or something? Or, like, are you friends with me, or am I friends with you because you know someone that I want to talk to get this internship and all this whatever?
Sure.
So it feels a little bit more like, sometimes I don't know whether friendships in college are transactional or not. And I think that being able to be friends and keep a tight circle is really important. And, like, I kind of struggled with that in the beginning of college, because I feel like Hart, like, is a big school, but it's not at the same time, because everyone knows each other.
It's a really tight-knit community.
Exactly, but then you go on to college and you're like, you have to realize that friendships require energy and effort from both sides.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I want to be friends with you, but, like, our class times don't meet up, but it's like, there's always an excuse. And again, you got to make the time, you got to put in the effort. And so, like, that kind of translating into having the relationship that I do with you, it's like, it's someone that I know, like, regardless of whether we've talked in a while or whatever, like, this is so easy for me because you're genuine, and, like, I feel like I can be vulnerable and I won't be judged or whatever, like, super chill, low stakes environment. Like, finding that in college is kind of hard.
Well, and I think too, high school and college, I think you're finding yourself, I think, is a really big aspect of it. And so I always tell, you know, I have kids ask me about college all the time. I had what I would consider a great college experience. I loved my time in school, but I tell people, like, there were moments that weren't great, and I made friends at first, and then I kind of moved on to a different friend group, and that's kind of the pathway you make. It's the same thing you talked about, being friends with the people who are in your immediate vicinity. It's a friendship of convenience. That happens in high school. It's usually what happens in college. You start being friends with the people in your immediate dorm.
In your dorm.
Right? And then as you start to get more comfortable on campus, you start to branch out. And I think this relates exactly to playing sports, because your friendship group is your team. And I think the longer you're in school, you start to meet new people, you get introduced to other people, you start to run into people with different interests, and then all of a sudden you're like, I never thought about being interested in this thing, but it is really fascinating, or it's really cool, and, like, I've met this person and they're awesome, and now I'm hanging out with their group of friends because I didn't even realize that these were my people.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a progression. Like, you have to come out of that conditioning from the high school experience and from understanding, like, you are really only friends. I mean, some people are different, but you're really only friends with people from your town or in your area or from your school or from your soccer team or whatever it might be. And when you go to college or when you move on into your life, you meet people in different walks of life, whether it be, you know, work or church or school or whatever. and you get to decide whether or not you want to have relationships with them.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like we haven't talked in a long time. I think the last time we talked, not to bring her into it because she's not here, but you sent me a message and asked me to look out for your little sister.
Oh, yeah.
And of course I said yes, and I did, and just checking in, and you had your reasons for wanting to do it, and I appreciated it because it showed me that I made enough of an impact for you that you would trust me with somebody else that you really care about. And so that's the last time we talked. That was months ago. And social media, I see what you're doing. You're in school, and it's not, I don't need to reach out to everybody that I have a relationship with because you're doing your own thing. You were traveling abroad. You were in Europe. Like, that's super exciting. You don't need to be hearing from me. But I do know that if we bump into each other, it's like we never left.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship I have with a lot of people. And I think it's just because those relationships that I develop with people are genuine. I vibe with people who are very much themselves. And it's nice for me to see young people that I have coached or that I have worked with, that I have a genuine relationship with, continue to evolve and become like better and more exciting versions of themselves. And so it's great for me every time people come back from school or they come out to the program or whatever. It's exciting for me because I'm like, look, it used to be little kid Drea, and now I get to see becoming an adult and finding themselves, and you're still you, but it's just you're kind of like you get different influences, you become a more evolved version of yourself, and it's exciting for me to watch the evolution happen because I get to see you when everybody, I don't know, sheltered is the wrong word, but everybody's kind of like in their place and has their role, and then you start to branch out, and it's like, this is who they really are.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see the evolution happen. And it makes me feel good that though I don't need to keep up with those relationships, but that the minute I run into somebody, it's like it's like we never stop talking, which is really, really nice. So thank you for being, I appreciate you being you. I very much value.
I appreciate you being you.
Thank you. I very much value people who are genuine to themselves. And it's tough sometimes because you want to be what other people want you to be, especially in high school.
Yeah.
You're kind of putting on a face, or you're acting a certain way, and maybe you treat people a certain way because you want other people to think something of you, or you really don't know how you feel and you're working through feelings. Like for me, I struggled a lot in high school, and I didn't even realize it was happening until after the fact. When I look back and I'm like, man, I really needed somebody to talk to, which was my impetus to do this. I wanted to be there for people. I had great parents. Like, I love my family. They were great for me. And yet, I still needed somebody to talk to because there are certain conversations you don't want to have with your parents.
Yeah.
Or there's conversations about your parents that you need to have with someone else. So being able to be a trusted adult in people's lives, and you said it earlier, transactional relationships, it's one of the things I love about being a coach because I don't need anything from any kid. Getting validation and getting feedback is great, and having a relationship with them is like all I could ever want. But if I'm giving you something, if I'm giving you my time, if I'm giving you advice, if I'm giving you support, I don't need anything back.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the coach-player relationship is, you go out and you play hard, and that is your reciprocation to me, is effort, is working hard. But like, I don't need anything from you, which I think is it's a nice relationship to be in because there's no effort required on your end. You can spend your effort with your friends and making time for them. But like even today, you made effort to come do this with me, and I very much appreciate it. So I think those things go a long way, and it's just really nice to have genuine people in your life. So I think seeking those people out in college or wherever in your life in general, I found, I'm my age now. Exactly. But I have found more people, you go through life and you're like, I don't know. A lot of people have lots of friends. I don't have a ton of people I'm super close with because I'm super busy all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm working with kids all the time. But I have a core group of people that I've built up relationships with that I trust, that have similar values, that see things with me eye to eye. And I think that's really important. So I'm glad I think what'll be interesting is your circle will continue to evolve and change, and you'll meet new people, and you'll be like, oh wow, like I thought I was I thought this was who I was, and you continue to evolve
Yeah.
and change and become more. So it's exciting. You're on the journey, man.
Dude, I'm growing up. Do you think that you need to like seek out those relationships, or do you think that they just come to you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think putting yourself in situations or environments that it's two ways. I think that you're either comfortable with or that also challenge you, I think are both really important. Those relationships will find you in some ways. You'll run into somebody, you'll meet somebody, like a chance encounter, or they'll have a class with you, or,
Yeah.
I met my wife in a class. And she was in that class for a number of reasons, and I was in that class for a number of reasons, and they had nothing to do with each other. And we met and became friends, and then nothing happened for a while. And then we ran into each other randomly a couple years later, and that is where our relationship began. But I have, the same things where I was introduced to somebody. I was with a friend. They introduced me. Hey, this is my friend. And the person who introduced me is a great person. I like them. I don't keep in touch with them. The person they introduced me to is one of my best friends. So they're chance encounters, but also depending on the environment that you put yourself in. If you are surrounding yourself with quality people and you are doing things that you find interesting or are fun, I always tell kids when you go to school, look at the school calendar of events and go to things that you would never go to. Just go, because you'll have experiences that you would never have thought to have. So I went to tons of events because of classes I was in. Took a lot of like international based classes. And so I went to see a lot of different speakers and performers that I'd never heard of, that I would never have thought on my own to go see, but it was part of my class or whatever. And through those environments, I got experiences, I met people. And so I think sometimes it's being in a comfortable place, but sometimes it's putting yourself out on an island. You'd be surprised the type of people that you meet, but I think it's also understanding, what do you want? And also not knowing what you want early on and being okay with that. I don't know what I want. I need to have experiences. I need to understand who I want to be. And college, and even if you decide not to go to school, that time period where you're working and meeting people and what have you, that is, you're still developing at that point. Like, they say your brain's not fully developed until you're 25, and it's true. That time between getting out of high school and having the freedom to both be an adult without a lot of the responsibilities. Some people at that age have tons of responsibilities depending on your life situation. But for a lot of college students and other people, it's like, my responsibilities are just me. And if I take care of me, everything else I'm doing in my life is kind of up for grabs.
Yeah.
And so it's a great question, but I think it really works both ways. People, you will find, I think it's both, you're simultaneously seeking those things out and they come to you. You know what I mean? But I think the more you seek it out, the less they come.
Yeah.
So if you are in that moment and going to places and trying new things and open to meeting people, you might meet some shitty people. You're going to meet some people where you're like, I fucking hate that guy. But you're also going to meet people be like, that person is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I am intrigued and I want to know more and I want to spend time with that person, or I want to go have experiences that they do because I never would have considered doing them otherwise. And that process of being open to things is, I think, where you find your path and what you do and don't like. And but I've found in my experience that those relationships do find you, those people do find you, but it's usually when you put yourself in a situation, when you step out of your comfort zone, or when you try something new, or for me, I met my wife, so this is a good example. I met my wife in a class that I had been taking for 4 years. I couldn't take the class, it was tumbling class. So I used to be a gymnastics instructor. And so I
Do a flip.
No, stop. Too old for that now. You're hilarious. But I took the class because it was fun, because I wanted to do it. And then the instructor found out that I was a coach and was like, great, I want you to participate in like spotting students. And you could only take it a certain amount of times, but he loved me and I loved the class and I wanted to keep doing it. It was something that I carried over from when I was younger. And so it was a comfortable environment for me. And I kept being in there, and I met lots of people, and there were lots of people that I either, wanted to date or was attracted to or whatever that were in that class. And it just happened to be in my senior year, a class I've been going to for years, all of a sudden the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with is there. And I don't know it at the time, but in the same way of me saying, go try new things, well, I met this person in something that I did all the time. But I also made an effort. She was cool, we hit it off, and we became friends. And then you start spending time with people outside of things, and I think you just have to be open to experiences. And I think those really important relationships can find you at any time, and you can find them at any time. So kind of keep your eyes open. And if you run into something or someone that you find fascinating, learn more about them. And maybe you find out, not that interesting. Or you're like, from them, they take you on a path, and who knows where that's going to go.
Yeah.
Good question, dude. Nobody ever asked me questions. You're the first person to ever ask me a question. That was awesome. That's great.
I could keep firing, but
that's fine. Go ahead. I have lots of. I mean, this is what I like doing this because I like people asking for advice because I didn't have someone like myself that I could fire off a question like that. You don't know what kind of answer you're gonna get, but it just is nice to have people in your life where you can say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what was your experience with this? Or what have you? So, most of all of my conversations are about athletes and their experience, but really the experience is more than that. Like the athletic experience becomes your life experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool about it. That's what I love about it, is my life started with me as an athlete and evolved into what it is now. But all of the things all the experience I had and everything that I learned in that time are my life. And I think that's what I want, I'm hoping that people can get from conversations like this is, if you're a kid who's going through something, you're not alone. There are other people who are dealing with stuff, and they don't know what to do either.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you don't know. And it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to try new things and to meet new people and to put yourself out there and get rejected. It's part of the process.
Honestly, I think rejection and failing to get what you want is the best learning experiences that's happened to me. Not only in, of course, sophomore year, I didn't make varsity, but in other things in life too, getting internships over the summer or getting jobs. And it's okay, it shows you something. Anytime you fail, it shows you something. And whether that's something about yourself or something about the opportunity you're trying to get that just might not be for you, it always shows you something. And I think that's the best. I think failure builds character 100%.
This is why you and I, 100%. I'm a goalkeeper coach, and the number one thing that I tell kids the same thing every time I train somebody new, always. You will make mistakes. You will get scored on. Failure is part of the process. And some people don't like to use the word failure because it carries a really negative connotation, but that is exactly how I see it. If you don't fail, you can't figure out where you went wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't then come back stronger. I firmly believe that the people who are the best at things are the people who failed the most at them.
For sure.
Because they've been willing to come back over and over and over again and learn from their mistakes and grow and become better. It's the same thing with relationships. Think about all the significant others you've had, and you look. Yeah, exactly. Well,
I'm just kidding.
No judgment. But you look at all of those things. I tell kids all the time, every relationship you have is an opportunity to learn something. And it's learning what you will and won't tolerate from future partners. It's learning what you do and don't like, and what you actually want in somebody who's going to be with you. And so whether it be sports or friendship or relationships, failure is going to happen. Friendships fall apart, relationships fall apart. Sometimes you get a B in your class. You know what I mean? Devastating, I know. Sometimes you get hurt and your career ends. Sometimes you decide it's done for me. And falling down, I think, is the most important thing because it teaches you how to get up. And if you don't get up, then what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is why we have always vibed. It's very interesting. I think you and I are on a very similar wavelength, and I think it's why, not that I'm super successful, but I think it's why you are going to be a successful person, because you are willing to take chances and make mistakes and learn from them. But it's because you made mistakes early on, and instead of internalizing them and feeling really bad about it, I'm sure there was that for a little while. There's always that moment or that time frame where you're like, or you might feel worthless, or you feel like there is no coming back, or that what's the point? But if you can take that and then transition and be like, the point is I have to get better. The point is I can learn something from this. Then we're evolving. And your life journey and the path you walk, there is no end destination. There's no end point. It just keeps going until it's done. So you keep learning, you keep evolving, you keep being influenced by people around you, you keep meeting new people. I meet new people all the time, and I learn things from people that I've known, right? You and I have had plenty of conversations, but this is a new one for us, and I've learned stuff about you today that's really important to me, and something that I'm going to be able to take and give to another kid, like the idea or the perspective that you had, and give it to somebody else, and hopefully someone will be able to listen to this and be like, wow, I never thought about it from that perspective, and now that I do, I can work on my issue, I can attack my problem, I can come back from an injury, or I can find the positive aspects of my situation, even if I can't play, even if I can't be a part of what I want to be a part of, I can still contribute in some way, shape, or form. I think that's really important. So good on you, dude. Like, I'm happy to see you today.
Dude, same. It's been so long, but I've literally been meaning to. I was like, what's Craig up to? What's Craig up to
It's
right
good.
now?
Well, I've seen you're up to jet setting around Europe, so that's what you should be doing when you're a kid. You should be out there having experiences.
Exactly,
You never know. Maybe you meet somebody in Spain who becomes a lifelong friend or whatever. Like, there's tons of opportunities out there, but you'll never know unless you try. And you don't have to travel internationally to have experiences, but if you have the opportunity, you should go. You should do whatever. I mean, I think you're on the right path, and I think you're going to be doing a lot of good things. And I'm very excited to see where your future takes you.
Thank you.
And I'm hopeful that people can hear your story. I mean, we didn't really even talk that much about you being an athlete, but I think that is why I wanted to do this show. Every other person we've talked to has been very athlete-centric, and that's great. And that's what I wanted, because I think it's important for younger and other athletes to hear other people who are their peers, who are their age, to hear what they're struggling with and how they got through it, and how they deal with recruiting, or how they deal with failure, or how they deal with, setbacks or pressure, or their emotional state, or mental health challenges, how they deal with those things, because you don't get to hear that.
Yeah.
You don't get to hear people talk about it. And I think that's really important. But I always say that sports is an allegory for life. I feel like you learn so much about how to just operate in daily life from the grind of playing sports.
And you could definitely see it in, like, for example, my little sister doesn't play sports anymore, and she doesn't play for her own personal reasons or whatever that might be. But you can see, like, the difference. Like, I would say when I was younger, I think soccer was my whole life. Like, soccer was everything, and if I wasn't playing soccer, like, I don't know what I was doing with my time. Like, I obsessed over it, and I think that there's a difference in, like, me and her, in the sense, like, when I was her age, I had soccer, I had my club team, I had the high school team, and those are, like relationships and friendships, like the one that I have with Manny, like, that's my center back forever and always, like, where I love Man, and I love everyone that I've met on the team, and I think that it's harder, like, I think that she's going through a little bit more of a difficult time because she doesn't feel like she has a support system within a sport or within a certain club at school, whatever it might be. and so she's kind of struggling because she just stopped playing. So she's kind of struggling to adjust to, okay, I'm not playing soccer. Like, what do I do now? Like, what now? So I think it's interesting. I'm interested to see like where that's gonna take her, but you can see how playing sports and just having people around you who you don't even realize impact you, not only on the field, but like just how you are in general, your own character. And I think that her not having that is a little difficult for her. So I don't know, I'm not necessarily worried, but I'll see how that kind of unfolds. You know?
It's something I've talked to other people about before is, you identify yourself as an athlete for so long. What happens when that's not who you are anymore?
Yeah.
If your identity is, I am this thing, and then your career ends, whether you decide to be done with it or it gets ended for you, how do you carry forward in identifying, how do you lose that identity? Is it always a part of you? And I think the things that you learn along the way lets it always be a part of you if you want it to be. But so I'm interested for you. Do you still identify as an athlete? We talked before that you might be making a little comeback.
Yeah, actually, funny you ask, because my friend literally yesterday spontaneously just texted me and was like, do you want to play club soccer at Santa Clara? And at Santa Clara, that's a D1 soccer sports kind of school.
Sure.
And so I played intramural, and it was fun. It was co-ed. So, like, literally, like, had an instance where a guy, like, blasted the ball. And, of course, defensive instinct, I stick on my, like, got the fattest ball print on my leg. I was like, man, this is why I quit. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, so, like, after I played intramural, I was like, wow, I forgot how much I, like, love soccer. And I feel like that's just a love for the game that just never goes away.
Sure.
And so she asked me if I wanted to play, and I just signed up yesterday, so I'll be playing.
You did? Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll be playing, and we'll see how that goes. I'm excited though.
I'm interested to hear about it.
It's been a while, but
that's good. But so for me, this is like, it's interesting because you identified it as an athlete for so long. You took time away from it. You weren't anymore, but then it's all, the love of it is always there. And some people lose the love along the way because it's, it's taken from you, or you just, you fall out of love with it. But I think for most athletes, like, it's always there. There's always something, you always remember little things about it that you love. You get the camaraderie of a team, and maybe your sister finds it again along the way in a more fun environment.
Yeah.
We talked to another girl that we talked to said that it was playing indoor with her sister that brought her love back. So for me, I like to hear that, and I'm interested to hear how you do and how you enjoy yourself and how you feel when you're playing again, because I think it's important. And I know I found my love for playing. I stopped playing for a while when I was younger. After college, I transitioned to different sports, and I just wasn't playing soccer anymore. And then I got back into it, and it like clicked again. Like, I remember why I was willing to do this so much, and why I was willing to put the time and effort in, and I love it. And since that time, I've surrounded myself with the game. It's become my career. It's become my life, and it's the reason I'm doing this now. Where you're talking about people in relationships and them meeting you and finding you. Sometimes you just find yourself on a path that you didn't expect, and the people in your life are like, you should go. You should walk that path because you love it, and it's some people would call it a calling. Some people, it's your life's meaning, it's your purpose, whatever. For me, coaching is that. And the fact that I get to build relationships like the one I have with you and the one I have with a lot of my players is worth more to me than any amount of money I could make. Making an impact with kids is really all I care about anymore. Outside of my family and my friends, I want to make an impact, and because I think it's important and it's valuable to me. And so I'm glad to hear you're on the comeback trail. Maybe we'll check in.
We'll see.
We always talk about wanting to check in with people down the road, so we'll check in with you for sure, because I'm interested to see.
Bro, I'm excited. I'm actually really excited. I think that at first I was like, oh, like soccer, like I'm gonna have to practice, and then I'm gonna have to make time in my schedule for that. But I'm like, why not? Like I'm so down, and I think that it kind of just came around at a good time, and sophomore year, why not? Why not?
I think
being open to experiences, why not?
I was just gonna ask you. So we wrap up every episode by asking people to give a piece of advice to somebody who might be listening, who might be in a similar situation, but you've dropped like 7 different pieces of really good advice, and why not is a great piece of advice. Like, why not give it a shot?
Literally, why not?
So do you have, we'll ask you the question, do you have a piece of advice that you'd like to give anybody else? I mean, I wish I had a list of everything you've said thus far, you know, from failure to putting yourself out there to, you know, being there for your team regardless. You just said one gem after another, and why not is a great one to add. You have anything else?
I think something to take into account, not only with like high school and sports, just something completely different, is like not to take everything so seriously or so personally, because as long as you're there, you're having a good time, and I will be there. There's a party, I'm down. There's something to do, I'm down. Like, as long as you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself, like, yeah, bad things are gonna come along the way, but just don't take everything so personally. Like, I feel like I struggled with that a lot, like, not only in high school, but also now. I feel like I do feel like everything's kind of like targeted at me, or there's people working against me, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna let you be you and I'll be me, and you're dealing with your own things, and whether you take that out on me or not, like, that's not my problem. And I feel like after learning that, my relationships with other people have been so much better. Like, the people who I used to like struggle with having a conversation with, like, would give me a headache after talking to them. Like, I just remember, like, okay, like, they're having a bad day, I'm gonna let you be, and I'm just gonna go about my way. And I think that's helped me a lot recently, I would say now. But yeah,
that's great, dude. You killed it today. It's wonderful to see you. I'm so happy we talked. It's been a different kind of conversation, which I really have enjoyed, and I'm hoping that there's a lot of kids out there who are going to be able to listen to this and gain a lot of information and knowledge and good advice from it. And we're definitely going to have you back, because we need to keep talking like this. So thank you so much for doing this today.
Of course.
It's wonderful to see you. You're one of my favorite people. You're the best, dude.
Thank you. Yay!
Thank you to our guest this week, Andrea Tovar, our producer, Malin Blade, and everybody listening. Check out our next episode for more Athletes Unleashed. Later, homies.